It's the third planet from the sun. A tiny blue sphere spinning for a moment in time. A remarkable place that was kind enough to yield just the right elements to sustain a phenomenon called life. Where each creature is as unique as this world we call home. And a day begins in much the same way for all. Maybe that's when it crosses your mind. In the warmth from a ray of sun, or the kindness of a stranger, it occurs to you how one life touches so many others. And you begin to see how all things are connected, like the blood that unites one family. And you come to realize that mankind did not weave the web of life. We're merely a strand in it. And whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves on the third planet from the sun.
Welcome, friends. Welcome to the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium, or actually its full title, the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium. And I'm thrilled you're here. I don't know whether your journey's been a long one or a short one. I know there are folks here from Portland and Ashland and from the coast and all sorts of different places. Wherever you've come from today, welcome. We're here to share an afternoon of inquiry with you, and we're going to start by letting you know who we are. If you were here this morning, you'll know that my name is John Symes. I'm lucky enough to be a staff member with the Pachamama Alliance, a not-for-profit organization that's based in San Francisco. And you can tell by my accent that I'm not from there originally. I actually used to live in the UK, and the symposium that we're experiencing this afternoon arrived in the UK in 2006. At exactly the same time as I was publishing a book called Your Planet Needs You. And I found to my great astonishment that both the symposium and the book carried the same message. And so my wife and I decided that we would be volunteer presenters of the symposium. And we started to run symposiums in the UK, and we would run events like this, and we would sell books to people. And we looked at each other one day and we said, this is how we are going to make our way in the world. And so we decided that that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring this message forth in the form of this workshop and the book and other things. We committed to doing that. We actually turned off any other income we had at the time and started on a life of doing this work. And we were blessed that there was an invitation that followed hot on the heels of that decision that brought us to California, into the working with the Pachamama Alliance that I do now and have been doing for 7 years. So I tell you that because I want you to see me both as a representative of the Pachamama Alliance, but somebody with roots in this as a volunteer. And that's an important part of how this message spreads in the world. And that's exactly who my two friends here are. They're volunteers moved to be here. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves and turn to you first, Angela.
Okay. Well, my name is Angela Rogers. I'm just so thrilled to be here with this gathering, especially. I first experienced this symposium in 2008. I had the good fortune of having Lynn Twist, who is one of the co-founders of the Pachamama Alliance, as a facilitator. It was deeply, deeply moving. At one point, I was in tears because it felt like I had come home. It was just everything that I cared about wrapped up in this incredibly beautiful message. I am a volunteer. I'm from Portland. Since 2008, I've been hosting, producing, and facilitating the symposium. And every time I do a symposium, even though I've participated, facilitated dozens of them, every time I do it, it's it's new for me because the group is new. And in my experience, the group creates the symposium. So it's always exciting to see what comes forth, what the group brings forth. And this is such an amazing group, so I'm holding on to my seat.
Thank you. Who are you? We'll find out. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Spindell. I first was introduced to the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium about 7 years ago. I had a friend who contacted me and said, hey, Paul, there's this workshop coming. I think you might want to go. It's about these 3 things, which you'll hear about shortly. And I went, yep. And so I went to the symposium up in near Portland, and the whole thing kind of messed with my head. It challenged me. And there's one particular spot that you'll see a poem by a gentleman named Drew Dellinger, who, when you see that poem, when I heard that poem in the video, I started crying. And it pushed me into action, more action. And I found myself, 2 weeks later down in California going through some facilitator training. And I've been doing this kind of stuff ever since. The facilitation, and I was using an expression earlier, it flips my pancakes, so to speak. So I just enjoy doing them. I hope I helped him. What did you just say? Flips my pancakes. Oh, it flips your pancakes, right. Yeah. Flips my pancakes. And one of the things that's interesting, I work for myself because I got, similar to John in a way, I was living the corporate dream. And I was very successful. If you talk to people about, a bigger job, more money, and bigger job, more money, and that was kind of pushing that, and yet I was extremely unsatisfied and not happy. But I was successful. We'll talk more about that. Anyway, so I now work for myself. I have a little more choice about what I choose to do. And I found that Pachamama, Awakening the Dreamer kind of stuff has oozed into my other work as well. I can't not talk about it. Right, as I go to try and do that. So, pleasure to be here. Thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoyed this. I want to say a couple of things before we move on. I want to welcome the live stream audience. So, folks, there's also an audience joining us from I don't know where in the world, and I want to welcome you into the room, and we'll include you into what's happening as we go through the afternoon. The other thing is we're very experienced at running the symposium, and not very experienced at sitting on these chairs. These chairs are on wheels, and they also swivel. So if you notice us drifting off, or we're talking to the wall behind us, come and help. It's quite difficult to get back into the right line once the chair's gone off. So apologies for any of that you might see going on. Okay.
We all like to move when we're talking.
Take it away.
And we're promising not to have any fun today whatsoever. Can you tell? There's a couple things at this point in time in my life, I need reminders. That's why I have the music stand here and some things in front of me. But we'll start with why we're here. Right? And first of all, I'm just a little curious. How many of you in this audience here were here this morning for this morning's session? Oh, good. So we can skip all the parts that they already talked about. All right, we can do that. Those of you who are new, welcome. Those of you who came back, welcome again. This is an interesting time, and we heard this morning a lot of things about things that are going on in the world, and from Move to Amend, talking about the rights of corporatehood versus the rights of people, and a stunning and heart-wrenching thing for me to watch what was going on with the buffaloes and the devastation there. And a lot of times it can feel like, well, what can I do, about all this? It seems so big. And hopefully as we go through this session, you'll find that there may be something that speaks to you. And that's one of the cool things, is to find the things that call to you and take action in that way. We're here to share with you about both the urgency of what we're doing and the opportunity. One of the cool things is I still believe there's hope. Crazy me, right? But I still believe there's hope, and if every day I wake up with that, it gives me another chance to do some good things. So I think there's both urgency and the opportunity on how you can become an active participant. Many of you already are. We oftentimes find that the groups we're speaking to are already doing lots of cool stuff. But one of the opportunities there is to hopefully give you some more information and to just jazz you up just a little bit more, right? And how we try to do that. Our goal is to empower you as global citizens here and in all your influences around here to start thinking about things maybe a little differently than we have so far, and taking a stand in the world and taking action. So that's where we're hoping to go with this. And hopefully that's why you're here too, is to learn a few things and get some ideas and hear from some really cool people. You'll have an opportunity a couple times today to meet some of the people sitting around you and talk to them. And we'll look forward to that opportunity. We're going to go till about 5 o'clock. We started a little late, so we might go a skosh later than 5 o'clock. We'll try and do that. For the local audience, I should just tell you, you know where the restrooms are, but please, if you can, notice the signs. Try and go in there quietly, because we did notice this morning that those were pretty loud entrances. So yeah, if you can help us there, that would be great. So there's that. John mentioned Pachamama and the Pachamama Alliance. We'll just share with you a little bit about some of the background, although you'll certainly hear a lot about it in the videos. And the word Pachamama, when I first went to the workshops, I was kind of clueless about what it meant. And if we go back in, and you'll learn more about it in the video, but if we go back, it's a word in the Quechua language, an indigenous language in the Andes, which translates to Mother Earth. Pachamama is Mother Earth. But probably even more accurately, the earth, the sky, the universe, and all time. And it's interesting because if I think about that, the earth, the sky, the universe, and all time, every time I think of Pachamama, I kind of get little goosebumps. It kind of grounds me, just feeling that way. One of the things we want to do as we get started is to acknowledge and celebrate our sacred space. We did some of that this morning when we came in, but some of you are new, and we'd like to do that again a little bit now. And I'd like to invite James up, who's our host here in the Longhouse, to come up and lead us through a short little activity to bring us in. Thank you, James. Do you need a mic? Want a mic?
No. I'm a teacher. I shout, and I teach in this building too, so I'm used to this. So y'all just stand.
What's that?
I'd like to say a blessing, say a few words about the Longhouse you're in, but I don't want you to be who I am. I don't want you to take my religion, to take my ways. I want you to join me in your ways, in your religions, in your beliefs, because we're all the same. We're all human beings in this building. We're all here for a dream. We need to listen to the dreams of the trees, the plants, the water, the air. All that is out there. So I'm going to say a few words, and if you will, join me in your spirit, in your way, and see if we can make this happen. Creator, thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for giving us life for another day, so that we can deal with all the issues that face us every day, good or bad. You've given us another day. Let us hear your dream. Let us remember your dream. It's within our hearts. It's within our spirits. It's within the genes. It's within the blood that flows through us. It will go into our children. It came from our grandparents and our elders and those that went before. It's in the stars. It's in the air. It's everywhere. Your dream is there. Help us remember. Let our conversations with each other be of respect and common search. A search for that dream. A search for the peace that's out of balance in the world now. Let us help put the world back in balance. The hope that our friend talks about is the very life that we need to have. Every day That hope is life. Creator, let us dream your life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
We're good.
Okay.
I'm going to do the 1 foot on the ground thing.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that. It's a beautiful place. I'm loving the light coming through the center, bringing in some good energy. In Oregon, we love the light. So let's talk about how the symposium came to be. We're going to look at a video in just a moment here. The Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium started from a call from the Ashwar people in the Amazon region, and John talked about that earlier. And since that time, the symposium was launched in 2005. It spread around the world. We were just talking about all the different countries where there are facilitators, volunteer facilitators all around the world leading symposiums, and it makes a lot of people giddy thinking about how it spread. So in the video, you'll get to see and watch and talks about what the Ashwar and their request is. They put the change of the dream for our culture.
These are the Ashwar people, one of our planet's most remote indigenous groups. The Ashwar are an ancient dream culture still living in harmony with their ancestral land. Nearly 2 million acres of pristine tropical rainforest in Ecuador and Peru. In the late 1980s, the Ashwar elders and shamans began having dreams and visions that a grave threat was coming to their people. The Ashwars soon realized what that threat was as they began to see what contact with the outside world and its thirst for oil was doing to the land and cultures of their indigenous neighbors. And so, the Ashwar made a bold move. They reached out to create a partnership with the very world that was threatening to destroy them.
In 1995, a call issued forth from the heart of the natural world that was heard thousands of miles away by a small group of people in the modern world. In the summer of that year, in a remote village in the rainforest, these two worlds came together, and the Pachamama Alliance was born.
From the very beginning, our indigenous partners told us that it was really, really great that we were working with them in the Amazon shoulder to shoulder. But that was only half the battle. They told us that if we really wanted to protect their lands permanently, we would need to go to work in our part of the world. And as they put it, we would need to change the dream of the North, the dream of the modern world. A dream rooted in consumption and acquisition, without any regard to the consequences to the natural world or even our own future.
Out of our work with them, we came to see that we in the modern world truly are in some kind of a trance, living a dream that's threatening not only the rainforest and their way of life, but the health and well-being of the entire planet.
So in response to the request that came from its indigenous partners, the Pachamama Alliance created the symposium, Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream, now being offered by thousands of volunteers in dozens of countries around the world. The purpose of the symposium is an audacious one, bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet.
The intention is that by the end, rather than seeing these as three separate issues, you see them as interrelated facets of one profoundly interconnected whole. and that you not only understand the scope and urgency of the planetary situation we face, but you also see that the possibility of our times is greater than the crisis.
The symposium was created out of the realization that the future of life on Earth is truly up to us. The main purpose of the program is to create a critical mass of global citizens who are awake and who can see that the future is not something we're going to live into, but it's something we can actually create. So what is needed is people who have a vision of a sustainable, just, and fulfilling future, and who are in action together to transform human systems and structures that separate us from one another and from the natural world.
It's a pretty bold and inspiring purpose, huh? But what's really cool is it's worthy of all of us, each one of us. And certainly at the times we're living in, we have an opportunity. And we certainly understand that for many of you here, you've been doing this work already for a long time. And you may even be wondering, gosh, isn't it sad that we have to do these kinds of things? I've been working on these issues for years. But hopefully this is an opportunity for you to go deeper, to find out some new things, potentially some new perspectives on some things. And there may be many of you who've been looking forward to trying to do something different, and here's an opportunity for you to learn some new perspectives as well and gain some vital information about what's going on. So hopefully it's an opportunity for all of us, and even those of us who facilitate and have gone through this a number of times to re-engage and go deeper as well. I want to talk about how the flow of the symposium is going to be organized, and hopefully that'll help you keep track of what we're doing. It kind of breaks down into about 4 key segments that we'll go through as we go through this. The first one is, where are we? As a planet, as a people, as a society, what's going on now? And taking a look at that from the consensus of a wide range of experts on a lot of the topic areas that we'll be going through, it will provide an important foundation for us as we go through the rest of the symposium. The second one we'll talk about is, how did we get here? And one of the things that happens normally in society is if we just focus on, well, where are we, and we start taking action there, we've missed the root causes. And we might just be putting Band-Aids on things that are just going to bubble up again if we don't really look at some of the root causes. So we'll take a look at how did we get here and some thoughts about that. Thirdly, what's possible now? We kind of shift gears and start thinking about, okay, so that's what's going on and that's what got us here. What's possible? That's a really exciting part of this symposium, in my opinion, because you start really thinking about all the things that are really cool that are going on in the world. Wow! I really like that. And then we can go to, where do we go from here? And that's really the action opportunity that we have, is, okay, so what do we choose to do? We've heard all these possibilities. We know what some of the issues are. We know what caused them. What are we going to do about that? Where do we go from here? And one of the cool things is seeing all these engaged people in the room together who maybe can feed off each other and also are all connected in different ways around this community, and how you can pull together to make some really amazing things happen. So, to get this started, so you can hang in there with a couple people here potentially that you haven't met, we'd like to do a little activity. I'm going to ask that you find another person close to you, so you don't have to get up and move all around, that you don't really know. And we're going to have you do an opportunity to greet one another and say hello. We'll put the questions up here on the slide, but I'm going to ask you to share with people in a pretty quick way your name, what you do or what occupies you in your time. In just a few words, what concerns you most about the world, and what gives you hope. And so we'll do that for just a short period of time, and then I'll ring a bell, which I believe we have right back here. I'll ring a bell and I'll say change, and you'll have the opportunity to switch, and the other person will get to do that. So if you would please, just find another person.
And for those of you on live stream, just have a moment to reflect on the third and fourth questions here, please.
If you would just thank your person for participating with you in that activity, acknowledge each other, and find your seats, we'll keep moving.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move into the first of the 4 questions in a moment, but I just want to stress that we're in an inquiry together this afternoon. We're not here because we've got answers to questions that you might bring. We're not here because we're going to debate what the best answers might be. We're not going to talk about what particular solutions there might be for particular issues we feel strongly about. Every one of us has come into the room with a passion, I'm sure, and yet those passions are going to be channeled through this common inquiry that we're in. So if you have questions, you have particular things you want to say, please hold them and come and find us at the break or afterwards, and we'll be happy to engage in conversation then. But until then, we're structured as an inquiry that we'll lead through in a particular sequence. And know that we're in the inquiry with you. We're not sitting here because we're experts. We're in the inquiry with you. So with that said, I think we're ready to move on, are we?
Yes, we are. Mm-hmm. So our first question in our inquiry is, where are we? Where are we on this planet in terms of environmental sustainability, social justice, spiritual and personal fulfillment? Now, it's obvious, having gone through the morning with most of you, that the information that we're going to hear is probably familiar. A lot of it is probably familiar to a lot of you. Maybe some of it will be new. We're not here so much to give you a bunch of new information. We'll be giving enough information to give a good sense of where we are on this planet in those 3 areas. But what we want to invite you to do, and by the way, the information that is going to be presented in the videos that we're going to watch in this section is drawn from the consensus of the majority of experts in these areas. Being a scientist, it's important to me to know that they're based in, a firm foundation. So there are references for all of these. If there's someone who's really extreme about all of this and wants to look them up, they're somewhere online. The Pachamama Alliance or Awakening the Dreamer website. So just know that that's there. Some of you might wonder, well, since I know this information already, why do I need to go through it again? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is we're going through this. This is a journey we're going through now together as a community, as a group. And so it helps us to lay the foundation, to go through it together, to bring us all kind of to the same place. So there's that. But there's also, it's really about inviting you into a new relationship with this information, of relating to it in a different way. For instance, I want to make a suggestion. When I was watching that video this morning about the buffalo, I don't know how it affected all of you, but I felt my body start, like tightening up. I was started kind of closing up, into this self-protective stance. And I had to consciously make the decision to open, to let myself be open. And, there's this saying by Pema Chodron that's been flashing all morning, that nothing goes away until it teaches you what you need to learn. So this stuff is still here. Obviously, there's still something for us to learn. We also want it to just let it move us deeply. So open your heart. Let it move deeply in your heart. And another thing that you'll experience, at least I experienced this, and this is something that Pema Chodron taught me as my spiritual teacher, one of my spiritual teachers, is that when you do just open to the energy of whatever is happening, your experience with it changes. The quality of the energy, the quality of the experience changes. I would suggest that we are actually engaging in an act of service by being willing to watch this, to witness it, to let it in deeply, to experience it as a group, and let it move us in the way that it will. I acknowledge that it's going to be difficult, but I also promise you that we won't leave you here. This is only the first question. We will be looking at what I call the other side of the coin later, but this is necessary. So I invite you to just pay attention to what's going on in your bodies, try to stay open and watch this information. The first video tells us where we are in terms of environmental sustainability.
Given that our purpose is bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet, the first question to ask is, where are we? In other words, what kind of world is our modern way of life actually producing?
Answering that question and confronting the realities it reveals may not be comfortable, but as we'll see, it is an essential first step to revealing what may be the greatest opportunity any generation has ever faced.
One place to begin is with the dramatic changes that have occurred in human population. For thousands of years, human population on Earth remained relatively steady. Then, about 200 years ago, at the time of the Industrial Revolution, humans learned how to harness the energy of fossil fuels. That allowed agricultural productivity to increase dramatically, and human population began to grow exponentially.
Since then, we in the modern world have attempted to meet our needs and wants through an ever-expanding process of extraction, production, consumption, and disposal of natural resources.
Gross domestic product, GDP, is supposed to, be a measure of everything, puts a value on everything that's been produced in an economy within a year's time. But what that doesn't measure is the fact that in order to achieve that gross domestic product, there's also a lot of destruction of natural wealth. And one can in fact say that the greater the GDP of a country is, measured conventionally, the more natural wealth, either in that place or globally, has been destroyed.
This current industrial model requires continuous economic growth. But is that growth sustainable? According to the United Nations, sustainability is the ability of the current generation to meet its needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs.
In many ways, the mass consumption dream of the modern world has been a nightmare for the global environment.
The Earth's forests are shrinking. Soils are eroding. Water tables are falling as a result of overpumping of aquifers. Fisheries are collapsing. Grasslands are turning into desert as a result of overgrazing. No civilization has ever survived the ongoing destruction of its natural support systems, nor will ours.
In fact, the world is rapidly approaching a number of tipping points, thresholds beyond which dangerous trends will become irreversible, threatening the existence of life as we know it.
Humanity has been continuously increasing its resource demand,
to the extent that by the 70s we started to use more than what nature can regenerate. Currently, we're using at least 50% more than what nature can renew. So we are in global overshoot.
Overshoot can be thought of as living off of your credit card. Humanity's living off its ecological credit card. if we use more than nature can keep up with, we actually start to erode natural capital that life depends on.
Currently, if everyone on Earth lived as North Americans do, we'd need 4 Earths. For everyone to live as Europeans do would take 2.5 Earths. In other regions, people are living beyond the capacity of 1 Earth as well. China and India are presently living just around the 1 Earth level. But given the rapid industrialization and economic growth of both countries, that's sure to change.
A key component of humanity's ecological footprint is the burning of fossil fuels. The carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere is causing the Earth's surface to heat up, disrupting global climate patterns. In a series of comprehensive reports, the largest group of scientists ever assembled on a single issue has warned that unless we act now, it is extremely likely that climate change will have devastating impacts on the future of life on Earth.
Scientists around the world have come together to tell us that climate change is actually happening at a much faster rate than they had first anticipated. The signs of this are the cataclysmic storms, the extremes in weather. The polar ice caps are melting, and it means that the entire ecosystem is in peril.
192 nations are in agreement that to avoid irreversible climate change, the global temperature must not rise more than 2 degrees Celsius, or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet, if we continue to burn fossil fuels at the current rate, we will surpass 2 degrees Celsius by mid-century. To change this trajectory and stabilize the global climate, it will take immediate, unprecedented cooperation and action by governments, businesses, and individuals.
We simply have to stop. We have to conserve. We have to change our lifestyles. We have to face the climate crisis that is upon us.
While people are becoming increasingly aware of the effects of climate change, what's not as well known is the impact we're having on other species.
We are in the midst of a mass extinction, but the news has not reached the general public. They are utterly unaware that the sacred and talismanic and heartbreakingly loved companions of ours on this earth are about to disappear forever. They will not return. African lions are on the absolute verge of extinction. There are only 20,000 left. That's down 90% in the past few decades. Every species and subspecies of tiger on the planet is on the absolute verge of extinction. Elephants down 90% in the past century. 90% of all large fish are gone from the oceans. Half of all species of life may be extinct in 50 years.
Nothing this destructive has happened in 65 million years. I mean, why is that not our central concern? It's overwhelming. No one imagined it could happen. So suddenly, we're confronted with this fact, and we don't really know how to respond to it. I think that's beyond most of us, because we haven't deepened our hearts in a way that would make possible the grief that is wanting to be felt.
And maybe just lower your eyes or close your eyes for a second, a couple minutes or a minute, and just take note of what you're feeling in your body, in your emotions. Not so much what you're thinking, but what you're feeling. Realize that we're all feeling something. We're all impacted by this. So we've looked at how the way we're living impacts the environment and other species on this planet. We're also going to look at how we live affects how we relate to one another and to ourselves by looking at where things stand in terms of social justice and spiritual fulfillment. I'm going to probably say less in this than I usually do because we had so much wonderful information and went through a lot this morning together that that gave us a sense of the inequities that exist. But I will just mention that it is important for us to recognize that there are structures in place, that these structures of oppression and structures of inequality are woven into the very fabrics of our society. We may think we've made, even in this country, we may think we've made progress because we have laws now, you know. But the inequalities that came from the foundation on which this country was built, you know, the elimination of a huge population of Native Americans and slavery, these inequities, this rigged game that John referred to this morning, where huge sectors of society, the dominant sectors of society, have so much more privilege, so much more access to resources and opportunities than others, does not create it's not a level playing field. And that this has been going on for centuries. So it's going to take time to unravel it and to really get at the core of it. So we do still have these inequities in our society today. Look at the war on drugs, and look at the prison populations, and the economic crisis of 2008, where it became obvious that not everyone plays by the same rules, that it's a corrupt system, that the people who created that crisis basically had no consequence, while there are people serving life without parole for carrying 3 ounces of meth, or 20-year minimum sentences, and what that does, and millions of people like that. So as we look at these, get some more information about these structures of oppression and how it's affecting our relationships with other people, also pay attention to how it affects ourselves, you know, our spiritual states, our states of connecting and relating to one another. So let's now watch the next video on social injustice and spiritual fulfillment. Where are we?
We've seen the impact that the dream of the modern world is having on the environment and other species. But how is it affecting the human family? One of the primary expectations people have of the modern industrial system is that by growing the economy, life will get better for everyone, that we are continually moving toward a more socially just world. But is this true?
When I was growing up, I always thought that, of course, the world will become more equal, there'll be more people educated, people will get jobs, and, you know, we'll all be better off, we'll all be more prosperous. However, what has happened in the last 20 years or so is the world has become more unequal. This idea that the poor will be kind of helped to come along, even though the rich get richer, this hasn't actually worked out to be true.
We all know that a great disparity currently exists between rich and poor. One way to understand this disparity is to think of the Earth as a community of 100 people.
This great disparity in material wealth reflects a condition in which the playing field is skewed, so that those who have wealth and power use it to continue to gain more, while others are systematically denied opportunities to improve their lives. Another way of saying this is that the game is rigged. So discrimination has been and continues to be built in, consciously and unconsciously, to practically every institution of our society.
Although significant progress has been made in addressing issues of social justice, systems of power and privilege still perpetuate injustice throughout the world. Much of humanity continues to suffer from the legacy of centuries of colonialism, imperialism, and racism.
So by seeing how the living legacies of injustice result in systemic oppression for some and unearned privilege for others, we can better appreciate what it will take to create a truly socially just world.
A socially just world is a world in which if you had to draw a lot and it would put you anywhere in that society, you would feel perfectly confident. You wouldn't be worried because you knew whatever lot you drew would be a good lot. It doesn't mean it's, everything's equal. It just means that every single person in that society has a decent shot at living the fullest life that they can. But if you close your eyes and you think to yourself, there's no more racism. All this racism stuff, that's in the past. Close your eyes and think to yourself, would you want to be black? Would you trade places? Well, if you wouldn't trade places, then there's work to be done.
People around the world are starting to realize that climate disruption, pollution, and other environmental problems will soon have an impact on the way they live. But for millions of others, it already has. The movement to address this has a name: environmental justice.
Environmental justice is the belief that no community should have to bear the brunt of a disproportionate amount of environmental burdens and not enjoy any environmental benefits. But right now, race and class are the most excellent indicators as to where you're going to find the good stuff like parks and trees and where you're going to find the bad stuff like waste facilities or power plants. And around the world, that is something that you see.
In many parts of the world, especially once colonized countries, where local people still have no control over their natural resources, the industrial world's demand for oil, minerals, and timber is having devastating effects on the land, air, water, and people. An example is the Niger Delta of Nigeria, where hundreds of millions of dollars of oil have been extracted and exported. Yet most of the people live in poverty on less than $1 a day.
Because of the oil activities in this place, a lot of people who go to fishing can't even catch fish. The aquatic life is destroyed.
See, the cassava, they don't rot to finish. The oil now spoil and like this.
All our food, all our fish die, finished.
The community asked us to go and do the cleanup. I was 5 months pregnant. I miscarried. We are 9 women who miscarried.
Oil should be a blessing, not cost to our land. But I think it's a cost to our land now. We are dying here.
What we do not understand is that we humans are only part of this ecosystem. And when we kill part of this system, we are killing ourselves.
I think for a lot of people who are born in privilege, there's a sense of what a friend of mine calls the right not to know. I don't have to know about poverty. I don't have to know about racism. I don't have to know about environmental degradation or environmental justice or injustice, because it's not me. I've got my life and I've got my family and I can do what I want. But the world is not forgiving of that much anymore. Pollution carries, water runs out in rich places too. The forests are coming down everywhere. The fish in the sea are depleting. It's hurting us all. Yes, it's hurting the poor first, but it's very, very difficult to go through life anymore and not see it and not feel it at some level personally.
Those of us in the modern world have had access to more money, more food, more comfort, more entertainment, more travel, and more communication than any people who have ever lived. But has all this made us happier?
The idea that material gain leads to personal fulfillment has been demonstrated not to be the case. Although incomes have skyrocketed in economically advanced countries, study after study has shown that levels of reported happiness have remained the same or even declined.
There is a great loneliness of spirit today. We're trying to cope in the face of what seems to be overwhelming evidence that who we are doesn't matter. Meanwhile, we're yearning for connection with each other, with ourselves, with the powers of nature, the possibilities of being alive. When that tension arises, we feel pain. And then we cover that over with anything that we can use to disconnect and to go away.
The reason that people are into this mass consumption nightmare dream is because people are lonely and people are hurt and people really believe that more income, more stuff, more consumption, more things, the relationship with things will fix the hunger in the human heart. And it will never work.
This is not the best of all possible worlds, even though it appears that way on TV and advertisements. I think people in their most poignant and honest moments will admit this is really hard right now for everybody.
The anguish we feel for what is happening to our world is inevitable and normal and even healthy. So pain is very useful. Just don't be afraid of it. Because if we are afraid to feel that, we won't feel where it comes from. And where it comes from is love. Our love for this world. That's what is going to pull us through.
Oh, Joanna Macy, I love you. I just want to give one little fact about the Niger Delta, because I looked into some of this stuff a little more deeply. That, you know, remember the Gulf oil spill and how every time you turned on the news after that happened, they were talking about it? Did you know that an oil spill that size happens like almost monthly in the Niger Delta, and that it's been going on for decades? And have you ever heard it in the daily world news? No. All right, so let's go ahead now. I'm going to take you through a little personal self-reflective exercise, and then we're going to have a very brief sharing. So go ahead and close your eyes if you would, or lower your eyes. And I'd like you to just visualize the beautiful blue and green planet we call Earth from the perspective of space. See her in all her beauty and majesty, so full of life. This is a place that has given you existence as a human being, that has contained all of your experiences, your love, grief, passion, joys, and losses, and the love and life of every other human being and creature that has ever lived. Knowing what you know now and about what is happening on and to the earth, what is happening to and among the people who live here, how do you feel as you look at this beautiful home of ours? Visualize the things you care most about: the natural world, the people in need or suffering from injustice, and the animals that you love. What do you feel as you contemplate what might be their future? Just be with those feelings. Allow yourself to feel in your body your response to what you've seen. Any emotions that may be there. Then take a breath and open your eyes. And we're going to do a very brief sharing. You don't need to move, but if you can turn to about three people, little groups of three, the people who you're sitting by. There's an exercise that just involves finishing this sentence. I'd like each of you to take a turn just finishing the sentence. And then as each person finishes the sentence, just take a pause and let yourself be a witness to what that person's experience is. And then move to the next person. There's not really going to be a discussion. The sentence is, "What breaks my heart is," and I'll just give an example of it. I work in child welfare, and what breaks my heart is seeing all the families from whom the ground has fallen out from underneath them and living lives of desperation and suffering and pain. So I'm going to take just a minute for the three of you to make a statement and to witness each other. Very brief, just be present with it. Not a lot of talking, so go ahead. Find the people next to you.
Should we just make sure everybody's in a group?
Sure.
Thank you. You know, I just want to say something about what's in the room, and I can feel all sorts of different responses in the room to what we've just witnessed, and bearing witness is what we've been doing, and you know, it brings up grief, and it brings up sorrow, and it brings up deep sadness, and it brings up rage, and it brings up guilt, and it brings up numbness, and other things. Is there anything else that's in the room? Tight. Tired. Yeah, and fear. And anything else? Annoyance. And so I just want to name that these are all the perfectly natural human responses to what we've just seen. And I want to kind of welcome them. I want to celebrate they're here, because our capacity to feel these things is important. The capacity to be enraged or feel shame or feel this or feel fear demonstrates that our heart's working. And what we know is that our ability to love is directly proportional to our ability to feel pain. And if we don't allow ourselves to feel pain, we actually don't develop much capacity to feel love. So the practice for us as human beings in the world that we look at, that we're bearing witness to day after day, is to be able to feel the pain, because then we can feel the love. And as Joanna Macy said, it's the love that will fuel our actions. So I really encourage you to open up to all of this whole spectrum and just know it's a perfectly natural human response to what we see. and is a perfectly natural human response in all of us. It's easy to look at these scenes, particularly when we think about social justice, and to think that the only people that are paying a price are the people who are oppressed or who are exploited. In fact, everybody pays a price, even if it's the people who seem to gain from a situation, because in some way we're all robbed of our full humanity. And so here we are, we're all paying a price somehow, and we're all paying a price in terms of our spiritual fulfillment, our ability to be at ease with ourselves and in the world, to have peace in our hearts, to have a sense of purpose and meaning for our lives and the lives of our children or somebody else's children. So this is how we're paying a price. And it's important to name that and know that. So everything happening here is welcome. Thank you. That said, we're going to keep moving. And so we're going to move to the second question. Thank you. How did we get here?
As I mentioned earlier, in our action-oriented culture, it's really easy to just look at the first section we just went through and start to rush to try and fix it. But oftentimes, if we don't look at the root causes, we end up starting all over again. So we're going to take an opportunity to look at what the root causes might be of some of the issues we've been looking at today. And as we do that, we'll also start to look at some unexamined assumptions that helped us get here. The power of the story of a culture, it tells itself in the new world view that makes this possible in society. So we'll look at a video now that starts to talk about how we got here.
Now that we have looked squarely at where we are, a good question to ask might be, how did an intelligent, well-meaning species, who for the most part only wanted to make the world better and more secure for their children, end up in such a condition? What could possibly explain how we got into our current predicament? How did we get here? Someone who looked deeply at this question was Thomas Berry, a cultural historian and cosmologist who spent much of his life examining the relationship between humans and the community of life on Earth.
The great work of our times, I would say, is moving the human community from its present situation as a destructive presence on the planet to a benign or mutually enhancing presence. It's that simple.
Thomas Berry says that the primary problem with Western civilization is that it creates and perpetuates a radical separation between the human world and the natural world. That we've given all the rights to the human and no rights to the natural world. We think we're behaving very rationally, that we're on this kind of logical economic course, but actually we're heading toward our destruction, and the only way to explain it is that we've been locked into a kind of mythic entrancement, a worldview that's become dysfunctional and therefore destructive.
According to Thomas Berry, our industrial age could be characterized as a period of technological entrancement, in which our obsession with progress has us marching toward an ill-defined magical paradise somewhere in the future. A future in which we have mastered the earth and everything on it, without any limits. And so, it could be said that we in the modern world are living in a kind of trance. Indigenous people would call this trance the dream of the modern world. This dream could also be called our current worldview, a way of seeing the world we're not even aware that we have. A worldview is held in place by a set of beliefs and unexamined assumptions that we're completely unaware of. Like glasses we've worn so long, we don't even know we're looking through them anymore. People's actions correlate with their worldview. We take actions consistent with how we see the world. And often, those actions produce outcomes we didn't predict or intend. So when our actions produce outcomes we're not intending, it's important to identify the unconscious, unexamined assumptions that generated those actions in the first place.
All the crises we're facing today can be seen as the unintended results of the unexamined assumptions that permeate the modern industrial society and our own thinking. So let's look at some of these unexamined assumptions.
One way to characterize the cosmology that really is at work in our culture is this, that the natural world, the earth, is there for us to satisfy our needs and desires, whatever that might be. So we want to make things, we use the earth, we make things. Or we think of it as something like a lumber yard. In fact, we use the word resource. So the earth is filled with resources that are there for us to use as we see fit. Now, that orientation actually is not that bad so long as humans are not that powerful. But suddenly, when we become so massively present, that orientation turns out to be completely pathological.
In modern society, many of us believe that our job as smart shoppers is to get the highest level of comfort and convenience at the lowest possible price. We assume that when we buy something, the price we pay reflects the full cost of making it. According to Annie Leonard in The Story of Stuff, maybe not.
I was walking to work and I wanted to listen to the news. I found this cute little green radio for $4.99. I was standing there in line to buy this thing and I was thinking, how could $4.99 possibly capture the cost of making this radio and getting it into my hands? The metal was probably mined in South Africa. The petroleum was probably drilled in Iraq. The plastics were probably produced in China. And maybe the whole thing was assembled in Mexico. $4.99 wouldn't even pay the rent for the shelf space it occupied until I came along, let alone part of the staff guy's salary who helped me pick it out, or the multiple ocean cruises and truck rides pieces of this radio went on. That's how I realized I didn't pay for the radio. So who did pay? Well, these people paid with the loss of their natural resource space. These people paid with the loss of their clean air, with increasing asthma and cancer rates. All along this system, people pitched in so I could get this radio for $4.99.
Many people assume that we can create a healthy society by concentrating solely on our success as individuals.
We are not just individuals. We are part of a society, a worldwide society. We're interdependent, and that interdependence flows at many levels. It's spiritual, it is psychological, it is economic. The notion that we can exist and prosper just individually, based purely on what we do and what we earn, is a rather new notion in history, and it doesn't work.
Another prevalent assumption is that racism is primarily an expression of personal prejudice and the way individuals treat each other. The effects of institutionalized racism are harder to see and to change.
Racism has a cost to every human being on this planet. Racism has dehumanized all of us. We are not taught how it was set up, how it came into being, how the very fact that we have something called race means that we are ranking people and that we are giving white people more value than everyone else. Until we understand the depth of that, it's going to be hard to undo racism. It's going to be hard to change. What we try to do is change people that aren't making it in the system, rather than changing the systems that make sure that some people don't make it.
We don't just have unexamined assumptions about how we relate to the planet. We have underlying assumptions that we haven't examined about how we relate to each other. We have a society that believes that we have throwaway resources, throwaway species, and throwaway people. The same mindset that says, I can ball up this can and throw it away. The same mindset says, I can ball up this child and throw that child into a prison forever for a mistake that child made, similar to the mistake my child might be making with drugs or whatever. That's the core mindset.
When you say you're going to throw something away, where's away? There's no such thing. And where away actually is social justice issues. and environmental justice issues. Every plastic bag, plastic cup, plastic to-go container, that is the petroleum complex in Africa, Ecuador, Colombia, Alaska, you name it. Every paper bag, paper plate, paper napkin, that is a forest. Every thing that is called waste or disposable is the ways in which we are saying that it is acceptable to throw our planet and its people away. Disposables are one of the huge magnifiers of how we've lost our connection to the sacred. Just take it for granted that we're going to go to the coffee shop and get coffee that came from an exploited community somewhere where a forest was destroyed for a monoculture, put it in a paper cup that used to be a forest, put a plastic lid on top of it that used to be an indigenous community somewhere in a beautiful area, drink it, and then throw it away where it goes back and pollutes a nature community or a human community at the end. I am so fiercely passionate about it because I know in my heart that as long as we are trashing the planet and trashing each other, a healthy and holistic and healed world is not possible. We cannot have peace on the earth unless we also have peace with the earth.
The dream of the modern world is constructed almost entirely out of assumptions that have simply been accepted for generations. And over time, these assumptions have become part of the fabric of society, profoundly embedded in our institutions. Questioning these assumptions and the systems that perpetuate them is a powerful first step in changing our worldview and waking up from our collective trance.
I love Julia Butterfly Hill as she talks about that. And in honoring the Peace Symposium that we're here to be a part of, I think it's appropriate when she talks about it is impossible to have peace on the earth unless we have peace with the earth. Those unexamined assumptions that pop up, boy, they're gnarly. And so often they're in our unconscious. It's way easier for us to say all these other people have unexamined assumptions, but not I. You'll see a list here of a number of other examples of unexamined assumptions that might fit and are what we're talking about today. The Earth's resources are there for us to use as we see fit. Recently, I talked to someone who mentioned that particular one, and I said, what happens when we run out? And he said, we'll go to another planet. Wow. Everyone can make it if they just work hard enough. Poor people are poor because they're lazy. Wow. I remember one for me, I was raised with the unexamined assumption that he who dies with the most toys wins. And I've been fighting one for a long time that says if something's on sale, buy it as a bargain even if you don't need it. You got a deal, right? It was a great deal. I'm still working on that one. It's really important for us to take an opportunity to start looking at our own unexamined assumptions and taking them home to ourselves. I'm going to let John take us through a little activity where we'll get to do that.
I was reflecting while you were talking. One of my unexamined assumptions used to be that it's possible to be neutral, not a force for good or a force for evil, but your impact in the world can be neutral. And I came to see that actually my complicity in the way the world works is so vast and insidious that I don't believe I can operate with that assumption any longer. So the exercise we'd like to do is to invite you to find some unexamined assumptions for yourselves. And so we're going to invite you to look into your own unconscious, as Paul said. We're going to look and see if we can surface some of the unexamined assumptions that we find are operating in our own lives. And we're going to try and find the unexamined assumptions that are the root cause of the behaviors that we know are damaging, that are preventing environmental sustainability or social justice or spiritual fulfillment. Those are the really interesting places to try and find. So we're going to do that by putting you into small groups, let you have a conversation about that, and then we'll share some of your findings back in the room. Okay? So would you please now organize yourselves into groups of 5 or 6, and if because this exercise is going to take a few minutes, move your chairs around so you're comfortable, please. And if you're not in a group of 5 or 6, raise your hand so we can come and help just do some grouping. Please don't make the groups much bigger than that, because it means not everybody has a chance to get involved.
How about this one? A homeless person, they're just going to buy drugs with it.
Okay, have 1 more minute. We'll take 1 more minute with this exercise, and then we'll do some sharing.
I'm going to sit in that now?
No.
This is how it looks. Well, it might. In fact, it doubles as a headlamp. It was really funny. One guy says, I really can't think of any for me. And then they started poking at him, and he says, okay, well, I have that one. Well, I have that one.
Okay, folks, stay where you are for a minute. Just stay in your groups if you would. But I'm going to come around and we're going to ask the scribe in each group to share one of the assumptions that you found. And we'd love the whole room to be able to hear each of them. So we've got a microphone, and we'll bring a microphone to you. So can we just start? And you can go that way with that mic. That's great. Can we go around and can we just go to the scribe in this group?
Scribing. Come back. Okay.
All right, another group. Let's take. If you're a scribe, just put your hand up so our mic runners can see you, please. Okay, we got somebody here.
When you have the mic in your hand, if you hold it close to your chin like this, everyone will be able to hear you well.
Okay, thanks. Let's start over here and then we'll come.
So we got to talking about some of the basic comforts of our modern world. We were talking about our assumption that we will have electricity whenever we need it, our assumption that we will have clean water whenever we need it, that we'll have light whenever we need it. General comfort, a certain comfort level.
Right, thank you. Okay, amazingly, those are assumptions that we've got. We just take them for granted, don't we? Thank you.
Ours was about making a difference on a personal level, and the inner fears that I can't make a difference, I don't know enough, I'll make a mistake, I'm not enough. And even if all of us are working at a personal level, there's still systemic powers that are going to overcome everything. So
thank you for all 6 of those. So we got more. I'm not enough, I don't know enough, I couldn't possibly do it on my own. So there's let's look at it though. There's a whole cluster there of assumptions that have come into this beautiful life here, or these lives, whoever was in the group, come into there and persuaded us that we're small people that can't make a difference in the world. Okay? Now, we have a chance whether we buy that BS or not, but recognizing it is the first step to knowing it's having an influence. And then you were going to go somewhere with systemic things as well. Wow, okay, that's a whole different ball of wax. Let's go to another group. This is great, thank you. So, yeah, please.
Ours is similar, and we had a number of different things, but all the others were reflections on what you all brought up. And the other one is, there's no way I can do enough to cause a change in the world, or not feeling like I know how I can make the most impact. And this from an activist that I personally know has done so much.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's the same kind of theme. That's wonderful, thank you. Shows how deeply it is. Let's go somewhere else, and please try and broaden the scope as well. If you've got assumptions that cover different areas of our lives, then please share those. And let's take the mic. Where are the two mics? Great, yes, please.
I have two observations to report. One of them is somebody who said that she could take shorter and cooler showers. And the other one is, this is about hypocrisy and the way we are sort of trained that when we hear someone has had a baby, we say, oh, how wonderful. And it's all very well if a family is having its one or first or second child. But when you hear about large families, why do we all applaud when this is a burden on the planet? And another case that was related was that someone was bragging about his sixth child. 3 of them were in another country and 3 of them were in this country. And he was having no role in taking care of the ones in the other country.
Right.
And he came in saying, congratulate me.
So there's an assumption that bringing a new life into the world is always a good thing, and that we always have the resources to deal with it. And those might be assumptions we want to question. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Please.
Awesome, thanks. So we came up with a bunch, but just one of them is, at least it's not me, it's not my responsibility.
It's not my responsibility. Wow, who can own up to having heard that little voice once or twice? What goes with it is often somebody else will fix it. We have leaders for that kind of thing. We can leave it to the politicians. Yeah? Anybody heard that voice? Yeah. Thank you. Please.
Well, I guess the one that stood out is simply I'm powerless to counteract the effects of the military and corporations. And then we had 4 other ones that are very similar. That I really like my techie toys. Driving to work every day is okay. Money will make me happier. Or if I'm poor, I don't have to worry about using disposables.
Okay, well, again, you've given us a whole bunch that are somehow related, and let's look at them. Some of them are about our right to consume. It's okay for me to have my toys. It's okay for me to drive to work. Okay? And we just might want to look at that. Now, I'm not sitting here saying yes or no, and these are questions we have to sit with ourselves. But there was a time when I was growing up when we didn't even have to question that stuff. We didn't even have to question that stuff. And now I think what I would say is that I like to ask those questions of myself. And I'll still make decisions, and I still have a huge carbon footprint. I have a huge carbon footprint by dint of where I live and by dint of choices I make. But let's be conscious. And the point is that these unexamined assumptions so often are underneath our own radar. They're affecting our behavior without us even knowing that that's what's driving our behavior. When we can shine light on them, we can make our choices in new and conscious ways. That's the key. So thank you. Let's go over here, yeah. And keep the mics moving if you would, yeah.
We had several good ones. My favorite is people who I care about are the most important. So whatever it takes to make my friends and family okay.
Yeah, and where does that lead us? It's a very tempting that family instinct, that parental bond maybe, leads us into that these people in my immediate circle, my family, are the most important. And actually very quickly what happens beyond that becomes unimportant to us. And it's distant, and it's somebody else. It's like it's not our problem. So yeah, from that love and concern, we start to make choices that actually have huge impact on other people. Yeah, thank you. Already?
Okay, we had, it's not my problem. It'll happen. It'll change. Kind of whether I want to
actually,
act on
we
it
want
or
to keep that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to keep that one. It's not our problem, don't we?
It's not our problem. It's not my problem.
So it's kind of British joke.
Oh.
No, didn't work. Okay, right. So, all right.
And then don't worry about it, and the problem is over there. It's China or India.
Yeah, it's a problem over there.
Or that person.
Yeah. Okay. And that's linked into where we go to sometimes from this family thing. It's like my immediate sphere of concerns here, and other problems don't impact me. Yeah. Thank you. Hi.
So an unexamined assumption is, people do it a lot, is, things are just the way they are because that's how they are. And through that, we've been able to uphold a human superiority against a lot of other things that live here on Earth with us. And a lot of people don't know how to expand from that individualism, don't know how to expand their caring, and a lot of apathetic actions come through that. And also, we lose our connection, like all these movies that we've been watching, like we lose our connection to the world that we live in, to the other animals that, we coincide with, and through that, we're just kind of going downhill. So.
Yeah, thank you. What links a few of the different things you touched on there is this very corrosive assumption that there is no alternative. It's always been like this, it'll always be like that. And you can map that onto all sorts of different domains of our lives. There'll always be poor people. There'll always be a war. There'll always be things that don't look right. Just don't care about them so much and you'll be okay. That there is no alternative is this, it sort of sits on top of every other problem and persuades us that it can't change and it's wasteful to put our energy and our love into trying to see something different. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Ours is kind of similar to what a lot of people have said, but we said, my decisions as an individual don't affect the community or add to the degradation of nature.
Okay, yeah. I have no impact on the world around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well done. I don't know how you got to that, but most of us, we all identify with that one, and it's, it doesn't matter what's one soda can. We have that mentality so easily. That's great. We're heading towards the back of the room, and the younger folk at the back of the room. Take us somewhere we haven't been yet. Take us somewhere wild and into a different domain if you can.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Spaceship Earth. All right, so our group, there was a reoccurring theme revolving around government agencies and upbringing. So on one side, growing up in a place where government, FBI, alphabet soup agencies like EPA as well, have the best interests of the American people. They've passed things such as the Clean Air Act and the Water Acts and things like that. And people just assuming that they have the best interests at heart and not corporate greed. And then the converse, depending on how you're raised, that the government isn't the best entity in the world with your best interest and distrusting everything. And then finally, the my vote doesn't count. I can't change anything by voting. So why should I vote to change?
Well, the my vote doesn't count. It echoes what's been said already. But I love this one, like the easy assumption that the government's got my best interests at heart. Well, so that, and then the other assumption that was just tucked in there is that the name of the legislation actually reflects its intention. Oh, yeah. The Clean Air Act. The Patriot Act. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for showing us that one. Yeah.
Okay, the assumption that I'm going to share, I think, speaks to the illusion that we can exist in this society as just individuals. And she said, I didn't need to interact with other people to learn. I can do that on my own.
Okay, yeah. I don't need to interact with other people to learn. Yeah. Haven't we been so led down the path of individualization? You know, that the me generation, and we've had that sold to us so much that we actually start to think we don't need other people. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. That's a different dimension. And at the back, yeah.
We were talking mostly about like kind of giving yourself a pass on being wasteful if you're like recycling something or composting it and not thinking about those materials and the energy that it takes to get them to you and where they're going afterwards, or things like organic labeling, and just kind of like you see that and you assume, you know, it's coming from a good source that's environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of just like lazy consciousness.
Yeah, I was somewhere last week and I was given a mug of coffee and I was, you know, the paper mug said this mug is compostable. And I was thinking of the China mug that I have, which is washable. And yet, you know, and there's this real difference. You know, so it's a kind of lazy place to go that says, I'm in the vibe now because I've got something that's recyclable in my hand or compostable. But actually, you know, why on earth are we not washing China mugs? You know, that you can use for a lifetime. Okay, now listen, we're going to wrap this unless anybody's got something completely...
Yes, I do. I realize this. I didn't say it. We think we're more important. I think I'm more important than the creatures on this planet. That I'm a human being and I'm valued. And it's an assumption that I've carried until recently.
Thank you.
Until I understood that the animals also are people. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so there's an assumption. And then I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to look at anybody while I say it, because it might be an ouch, but do we sometimes even fall into thinking that we're more important than other people? Other people that look different than we do. Yeah, whatever we look like, but somebody who looks different from this, you know, I'm probably more important than they are. Yeah? And then what do I do because I think that at some murky level that I haven't examined fully? You know, what does that then justify? Okay, this ain't going to turn into a big debate, but I'll take that hand, and there was a question here, was there? Okay, 2, and then we're probably out of here.
There is one more that's a real obvious one.
All right.
If someone disagrees with me, if someone's getting angry with me, whatever, they're an asshole.
Right. So the assumption that anybody who doesn't agree with me is one of them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And they're wrong.
I agree. All righty.
You better agree with
Amy, have we got a mic for Amy? Thanks. Thank you.
If I'm taking care of these issues on whatever level, I can stop taking care of myself.
Hold the mic closer.
If I am taking care of these issues that I believe in, it's okay to sacrifice my health, my personal health.
Right. So that's a kind of the martyr syndrome playing out in us, that I'm doing something worthy in the world so I can put myself as a less important. And if that exists anywhere in the room at all, let's have the end of that one. Let's expose that one because that's worthless. Okay? Yeah. Now, in coming out of this, I want to point to what might be the most pervasive, unexamined assumption of all, and that's the assumption that we are separate. The assumption that we are separate, that we're separate from each other, that we're separate from the rest of the natural world. And the reason it's really important to note this is that it seems to lie underneath almost everything else that we've talked about. And what we want to know is that there's actually access to another worldview. There's another worldview available which is not based on separateness. And are we going to move to the video, or do you have something to...
No, we can go. We'll go to the video about another worldview, looking at how the indigenous folks look at the world, and not to idealize them because they have their own challenges, but they give us another way of looking at things than just the view of the modern world.
Of all the countless assumptions that make up our modern industrial worldview, there is one that is primary and all-encompassing. The assumption that we are separate from everyone and everything. This assumption shapes virtually all of our perceptions and actions.
Over the centuries, the story that's been communicated in the modern world, consciously or unconsciously, has been that the world operates like a huge machine, made up of separate parts like a big clock. For the past 400 years, the scientific tradition has been trying to take the clock apart and figure out how it works, so we can master it and use it for our own purposes.
A mechanistic view meant that instead of seeing the interconnection between things, there was a way of analyzing what people were coming into contact with and taking it apart. So what evolved was kind of a fragmented view of the natural world. And we became hypnotized, really, with the power that came out of this technology. And we lost our connection to each other. We lost our connection to the mystery of the universe.
There's a fundamental misconception that we are separate. We're learning that's not true. If there's only one, then whatever I do to you, I do to me. If there's only one, whatever I do to the air, I do to me. If there's only one, whatever I do in society is what I'm actually doing to myself, doing to my family, doing to my children.
Spiritual traditions have long taught that separation is an illusion. Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh puts it this way.
We have the word to be, but what I propose is the word to interbe. Because it's not possible to be alone, to be by yourself. You need other people in order to be. You need other beings in order to be. Not only you need father, mother, but also uncle, brother, sister, society, but you also need sunshine, river, air, trees, birds, elephants, and so on. So it is impossible to be by yourself alone. You have to interbe with everyone and everything else. And therefore, to be means to interbe.
Increasingly, people in the modern world are listening to the voices of indigenous people, whose message has always been that all things are connected.
We use another terminology called Mitaki Oase, is all my relations. You know, we try to recognize that we are related to everything, to the animals, to the fish, to the plants, to the trees, to the birds, even the microorganisms, so that we are all related.
The foundational understanding from my point of view, or an indigenous point of view, is that you are a part of that land in a very interdependent way. You are part of the land, and it's your body. It's you. And you can't do things to the land that in the end comes back and destroys you.
This deep recognition of interconnection is supported by the current scientific understanding of the origin of the universe, which has shown that all of creation is profoundly connected at both the macro and micro level.
We can see that everything that ever was
is or will be, was compressed into a space smaller than a seed, tinier than a tear, more minuscule than a molecule. All space, all time, and the potential for everything that would ever exist started as a single point. So in a very real sense, science has discovered what indigenous people have known all along. We are all one. We are all connected. We all come from the very same source. Everything we see around us has developed from the boiling cauldron of the early Earth, a sphere of lava that miraculously gave rise to the sea and the atmosphere, and then life in its infinite expressions. As Brian Swim says, the Earth was once molten rock and now sings operas.
It is not the case that the Earth was assembled and then we were added to the Earth and it was there for our purposes. Rather, we came out of the Earth. We are the universe in the form of a human, and it's true of everyone. It's an amazing new understanding of ourselves that is so profoundly inclusive. And everyone is part of this. Everything is part of this. And we discover as well a profound kinship, that no matter what being we're talking about on the planet, we are related. We're related in terms of energy. We're related in terms of genetics. We're all, in one way or another, like a form of kin. And that, it's overwhelming. So it's just now coming into human awareness. It's going to take a lot of reflection to embody this fully, but it is a massive change in human consciousness.
Seeing ourselves as separate has had devastating consequences on the planet and all of life. Now, a new story about who we are as a planetary family is beginning to shape the consciousness on Earth. Looking at our history through this lens, it could be said that human beings have been tragically mistaken rather than being fundamentally flawed. This is good news because there's not much hope for an innately flawed species. But there is hope for one that is recognized and is waking up from a trance. That creates some powerful new possibilities for the future.
Flawed. Perhaps I've just been mistaken. Right? There's hope. I mean, that's one of the things. We start to change the energy now in this symposium with the idea that, guess what? We might not all be innately flawed. We may just have been mistaken. I like that idea. Right? So let's keep that energy. I'm going to give you a 5-minute, count those 5-minute short, quickie break because we got a late start. So I'm going to give you a 5-minute break, take turns in the potty, do whatever you need to do. We're going to start again with what's possible for the future in 5 short minutes.
Right, so now that we know how profoundly connected we are, we're going to move into our next question, which is what is possible? And by the way, I want to, oh, this is like 20 seconds.
We're moving right along.
I wanted to mention that if you're, I just finished a book by Lynn McTaggart called The Bond. Lynn McTaggart is a journalist, and she's just phenomenal at collecting information from all kinds of places. And the book will blow your mind as far as seeing all the different ways, scientifically based, in which we truly are one. We are connected. We are not even meant to think of ourselves as separate beings. So I want to recommend that book.
It was called Bond?
The Bond.
And it's by
Lynn McTaggart. Okay. So what is possible now? So we've heard some terms that kind of characterize the time that we're at this point in history, which I think, by the way, is probably the most magnificent point in history. The Chinese word for crisis is the same as the Chinese word for opportunity. So this is now the flip side of the coin. This is what is already emerging, and what can come of that. You've heard the term probably the Great Turning. You may have also heard terms like the tipping point, which can be good or bad, or critical mass. So these are all terms that characterize our time. So we're going to watch a video now that I think will rock your socks. So it's about what is possible.
It might even flip your pancakes.
Let us remember that there is a creative force in this universe, a power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
There is a tendency to think that what we see in the present moment will continue. We forget how often we've been astonished by the sudden crumbling of institutions, by extraordinary changes in people's thoughts, by unexpected eruptions of rebellion against tyrannies, by the quick collapse of systems of power that seemed invincible. What leaps out from the history of the past 100 years is its utter unpredictability.
Demonstrations in Russia were like totally illegal. After 1 second holding the banner in front of you, you would be arrested. But we did it once, and we did it twice, and then we did it 3 times, and a year later, demonstrations were a common thing on the streets of Moscow. We didn't believe that we can change anything, but we did it anyway.
After many centuries of warfare in Europe, who could have imagined the emergence of the political power that is now the European Union? And in a country with a history of slavery and segregation, who could have predicted that a man of color would be elected its president? Or that a nation would publicly apologize for the wrongs committed against its first peoples?
We apologize for the laws and policies of successive parliaments and governments that have inflicted profound grief, suffering and loss on these our fellow Australians. For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, we say sorry.
Many, many years ago, I interviewed Desmond Tutu prior to the end of apartheid. And he kept saying, when we end apartheid, and I kept thinking, yeah, right, like dream on. I mean, I didn't want to, rain on his parade or anything, but in my heart of hearts, I thought, not in your lifetime. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, it was over. So it was a really profound lesson about what can happen when the will of people aligns.
We have defeated awful things like Nazism, like apartheid, and we've seen some wonderful human beings, Mahatma Gandhi, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa. What that says is that ultimately good prevails. It is a moral universe, despite all appearances to the contrary. It is that there's no way in which evil will ultimately triumph.
Many experts are convinced that humanity already possesses the resources and technology to solve our most pressing environmental and social problems.
We know how to do these things. This is not a great mystery. We don't have to do research for the next 20 years to figure out what to do. We know what to do. We think it'll take about $200 billion a year to stabilize population, eradicate poverty, and restore the economy's natural support systems over the next decade. That's a lot. But when you compare it with military budgets. It's really not that much. It is less than a third of the US military budget. It is roughly an eighth of the global military budget. So we can't say we don't have the resources to save civilization. We do.
The ideas, technologies, and policies that will lead to a new future are already emerging in government, business, civil society, and in people's personal lives throughout the world.
El Ecuador es el primer país en el mundo en reconocer los derechos de la naturaleza en su constitución. El reconocer los derechos de la naturaleza significa tratar a la naturaleza como un alien a quien proteger y no como un algo que se destruye, que se explota.
In the United States, growing grassroots movements are mobilizing support for game-changing initiatives such as limiting the influence of money and corporate power in the democratic process, and addressing climate change by putting a price on carbon emissions. Pricing carbon emissions and then giving a dividend to consumers can help make renewable energy competitive with fossil fuels.
In the business world, social entrepreneurs are creating a new kind of company.
Normal companies have a legal obligation to maximize value for their shareholders, period.
We wanted to create an opportunity for a company to both make money and make a difference.
And so we created this nonprofit B-Lab to help support that global movement of entrepreneurs that was trying to use business as a force for good.
We sell prescription eyeglasses, and for every pair that we sell, we distribute one to someone in need. We partner with this amazing social enterprise called Vision Spring that trains low-income men and women to give eye exams and sell glasses.
And they're part of a community of 1,000 businesses from more than 80 industries across more than 30 countries that all share one unifying goal, which is to redefine success in business. And if they can do that successfully, one day all companies will compete not only to be the best in the world, but to be the best for the world.
A lot of people think that trash is inevitable. It's one of those necessary evils of life, but that's not true. Waste is actually the product of bad design, and bad design can be changed.
Innovative design is also creating low-tech solutions for the developing world.
At the heart of the transition to a new world are the communities, families, and individuals who are changing the way they are living, making new choices based on the values that support a more sustainable, just, and fulfilling society.
When we think about global warming, we think about transportation, we think about how we heat our houses. But in fact, how we eat has just as big an impact on climate change.
Everywhere on planet Earth, in cities and towns, suburbs and villages, a vast and unprecedented global phenomenon is beginning to make itself known.
There is another superpower here on Earth. That is an unnamed movement. It is far different and bigger and more unique than anything we have ever seen. It flies under the radar of the media by and large. It is nonviolent. It is grassroots. It has no cluster bombs, no armies, and no helicopters. It has no central ideology. A male vertebrate is not in charge. This unnamed movement, you can clap for that. The very word movement is too small to describe it. This is humanity's immune response to resist and heal political disease, economic infection, and ecological corruption caused by ideologies. This is fundamentally a civil rights movement, a human rights movement. This is a democracy movement. It is the coming world. What you're seeing here is the beginning of a list of the 2 million organizations in the world that work towards social and environmental justice. And that's a minimum. To give you a sense of how big this movement is, if I start this tape today at 9 a.m., And we watch this all day and all night. And the day after that, and then we watch it for 3 more weeks. And then another month after that, we still would not have seen the names of all the groups in the world. It's the largest social movement in the history of humankind by far.
Powering this growing global phenomenon is the explosive digital revolution that is revealing and connecting a planetary human community.
People can now be connected nationwide to act locally in their communities and then have all that local action united into one synchronized, beautiful, harmonic voice.
The only voice we have is this video editing. We don't know books, so we can't write much. But if we are able to do a small film of what is happening to us, it will go to the internet, and the whole world will see it.
We have the technologies, policies, and initiatives to move us toward a thriving future. All that's missing is something that only human beings can provide: the commitment, the collective will to change our direction. Awake, committed people are galvanizing that will. Realizing that a new future is truly up to us, they are working together to build the critical mass that can and will change the course of history.
Yes. Yes. So, wow, how about that? So when Paul said at the beginning, you know, that he when we were getting ready to look at where we are, that he still has hope, I go, well, of course you have hope. You've seen this.
Yes.
How can you not have hope? And wow, what an exciting time that we live in. It's a matter of looking in the right place, you know, for what's going on. And I suggest that we not rely so much on the mainstream media for that, but look a little deeper. So we saw some things there that are emerging, that are happening, the movements that are going on. I like the way Paul Hawken refers to it, the superpower that's flying under the radar. And also I want to mention that when Paul Hawken gave that talk in 2004, that it was 200,000 organizations at that time. And so there had to be a voiceover. That's one of the parts of the symposium that, you know, they have to keep updating, because now there's over 2 million. So we heard about Move to Amend. That's in a movement, the U.S. Social Forum, or the World Social Forum. Let's have a couple of shout outs about other movements and things that people are seeing. Yes? I don't know more.
I don't know more, yeah. Somebody in the group was just saying, we got to do a little shout out for the Cowboy Indian Alliance.
Yes.
Currently on the mall in Washington, D.C.
Indeed. Yes. Any others? Quick one. What was that? Post-Ignorance Project. And yes, Move to Amend.
Well, here's one, and you know, this is so unacknowledged, because we even saw in that little clip about the population is going up, there's nothing anyone can do about it. But in fact, although the population of the world is going up, the rate of increase has changed dramatically.
Yes.
In recent years, due to many people's efforts. There's something that's called the demographic transition, and that is when a country is at replacement level or below in population. India has totally undergone the demographic transition in the last 10 years.
Yay,
and
India.
much unacknowledged, and to everyone's surprise, within the last 2 to 3 years, Mexico has done the same thing. And nobody really seems interested in looking at that, oddly enough.
Cool.
Well,
it is
awesome.
something that a lot of people have put in a lot of work towards.
Okay. Great.
Helping happen.
Another one, just shout out, please. We don't have time for like. Yeah.
Partnership for Safety and Justice. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the reason why Latinas are also becoming more employed and
Okay, great. And I want to mention Bill McKibben and 350.org and the Climate Citizens Lobby. And yes, okay. So the other thing that I want to encourage people to do, because What we need at this time is to be able to dream, to be able to use our imagination to envision the world that we want, because there is this rich, fertile ground that is going on. So I encourage you to dream, to express your dreams and your vision in art, in writing, in whatever way, and to have conversations with each other about it and keep it alive.
It's so interesting. One of the places in which creativity and imagination is so much used is in the advertising industry. So there's a section that we have next in the symposium, which I'm actually going to read to you. And I had the great pleasure of reading this aloud to a symposium audience in the headquarters of Wieden and Kennedy in Portland. And so here we are in the middle of the advertising world, and we're inviting people to consider that, what if a fraction of the brilliant, creative, effective PR and advertising minds around the world that are currently focusing their energies on toothpaste box design and on encouraging us to consume more and more and more so that we'll be happy, what if they took on the purpose of the symposium, which we've got here on this flip chart?
Yo, listen up. This is your home. It's the only one you got. This place is pretty, but you can't live there. You can't even get there, so I repeat, this is your home. It's the only one you got. Cherish it, protect it. It's the only one you're gonna get. These guys, they're your neighbors. They ain't going away, they ain't leaving. You have to get along with them, so you have to learn to share. You have to get along. You have to learn to get along, because they are your neighbors, they're not going away. Okay, all this stuff, the animals, the waters, the sky, the ground, the bugs, the fish, the tacos, the people, they're all connected. Everything is connected. They all depend on one another. If you ignore that, you're doomed. Repeat, doomed, okay? So listen up, it's all one. Not two worlds, not three, one. Just one. So get it in gear. Remember, all is one, okay? Hit it.
So we begin to taste that another world is possible. And another world is actually emerging in front of us, as we know, just less well reported than other things in the world. And so if that's what's possible, the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? And the fourth question of the symposium, where do we go from here, is what's up for us right now. So we're going to take a delve into a video that helps us with this question, which is where we get really to the rubber meeting the road. Take it away, if you will.
It's 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals, reptiles, birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew?
So now we know. We know that our current worldview and the industrial system it gave rise to have run up against the limits of a finite planet. We know that the vitality of the Earth is declining every day, that the chasm between the few of us who have more than we need and the many of us who have not nearly enough gets wider every day. And we know that it is hurting all of us inside.
At the same time, we know that we are part of a worldwide awakening, a grassroots movement for change that is unprecedented in human history. So now that we know, the question arises, what part do we play in this great unfolding story? Where do we go from here?
Where do you go from here?
This is the true joy in life. Being used for a purpose
recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations.
People want to know what to do, and I think that's a good question too, but a more profound question and a more powerful question is, who do we need to be? And I think who we need to be are people who know that the decisions and choices we make now impact the future of life for the next 100 years. Everybody alive today has a role to play. You don't have a big role and you don't have a small role. You just have your role. And if you play it, then your life will really have a kind of meaning that you've dreamt of.
Taking a stand for what you believe in is a powerful, life-affirming act. Actually bringing forth a just, sustainable, and fulfilling world will involve joining in a deep and authentic way with others who share this vision and stand.
I don't think an authentic stand comes from your head. I think an authentic stand comes from your heart. You know, if your child is sick, right? Something happens in you to make a miracle, to make a miracle. And if you start thinking about it, you'll sit down. But if you feel it, you'll stand up. That's the amazing thing about this thing, is that it's when you stand up, you license other people to stand up. Now, you stand up by yourself don't make a dadgum bit of difference in the rational world. You just one fool standing up. But have you ever seen a standing ovation? It starts with one fool standing up. And then pretty soon the whole stadium is standing up. And it's a different moment.
What a precious opportunity we have to make a stand, each one of us. And I'd like to suggest that taking a stand is different than taking a position. It's generally something for something rather than against. If I relate it, to me, I think it's the difference between a peace rally and an anti-war rally. Each of us has this precious opportunity to stand for something, and for each one of us, it may be a little different. I'd like to give you just a moment to think about why you are here, both here in this symposium and why you're here in your life. What are you standing for? Give you a moment to think about that. Taking a stand comes from the heart, from the soul, something that flips your pancakes. When you're living from a stand, you experience life in a different way. Your life has meaning and can and does make a difference. How many of you remember the story of the starfish? You, right? Someone's walking down the beach. He sees a guy doing something. He can't quite tell what he's doing. And as he gets closer, he sees he's throwing starfish into the water. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, these starfish have washed up on shore. And if they don't get back in the water, they're going to die." The guy says, "But there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of starfish washed up on the shore. You can't hope to make a difference." And he picks one up and he throws it in the water and he says, "Well, I made a difference to that one." So when we talk about not being able to make a difference, that we're too small, there could be starfish out there waiting for you. We're going to give you an opportunity now to take a stand, if you will. we have some declaration cards, I believe, that are coming from our able assistants here. We're going to pass those around to you. And they are kind of cool cards. You see them up here. It says, I am committed to bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet as the guiding principle of our times. And also has a nice quote on the back that you may recall. Feel free to keep this as one of our gifts to you today. Feel free, if you're willing, sign it, date it. Put it somewhere where it is a visual reminder to you every day about the power of your stand and what you're doing.
John?
Behind you? John, there's some?
Over there.
Yeah. I happen to be a visual learner. Whenever I'm working on stuff, it really helps me that I post it somewhere to keep it in the front and center of my mind, on the bathroom mirror, or on the dashboard of my car, or somewhere that I can see it. And I would encourage you to do that with these as well.
I remember the first time I went to a symposium, this event in London, and a card like that was handed out, and I signed it immediately and still have it. And a friend of mine I met years later, somehow this came up in conversation. He said, you know, that card, it was so important to me. He said, I took it home and I put it somewhere safe. He said, it took me 6 months to decide whether or not I could put my name on it. So whatever works for you right now, but this is a heartfelt invitation from us to consider taking this stand, incorporating this stand in your life. Yeah, thank you. What's the date? That's a great question. Is it the 25th?
Yes.
Of?
April.
April. Thank you. Yeah. Cool. Okay?
Good, man.
You see, one of the useful things about a stand is, whether we know it or not, what we stand for is what powers our actions. And so deliberately taking a stand, deliberately crafting the ground on which we'll stand is a really important way for us to ensure that what we do, the actions we take, are those that make the biggest difference. And so with a stand, we want to move on from that now and start to think about action. What are the actions that we're going to take? And what we want to do to start with is we want to show you some of the opportunities for action that we've created as the Pachamama Alliance. And I'm telling you this because I want you to know about it. This work, this symposium, is the first step of several. I'll talk about them. But the goal here, if we're going to reach this future of an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence in our lifetimes, we hold that that's going to take an enormous mass of citizens awake and in action. We believe it's going to take a critically large mass of us to be in action. And so what we've designed in the Up to Us pathway is a pathway to engage people, bring people out of the dream, the old dream of the modern world, bring them into awake, informed action that makes a difference. So what I'm talking about is steps to help build a mass of citizens who are up to the job of changing the dream. Okay? That's what we believe is going on. Yeah, exactly. That's what's necessary. That's what we're up to. So these steps are designed to carry any one of us along that journey. So the first step we have is the symposium, and here we are in it. The symposium's a big wake-up call. That's what it's designed to be. And it can't give us all of the information we need. It can't tell us everything we need to know about the rigged game, how the rigged game is constructed, and how we can begin to deconstruct it. It can't even tell us enough about our own role as evolutionary agents in the flowering of consciousness. It can't tell us everything we need to know about how to be sustainable in our action. So we've put together something we call a Game Changer Intensive. It's an online course of 8 modules that anyone can take that teaches you about all of those things. And it combines online learning with small group discussions and larger group interactions as well. Is anybody here actually taking that? Yeah, wonderful. So several of us. And if you go to our website, you can find a way to log into that. And you can engage in that from your own home, your own, from here, from university, whatever it would be. So awakened, educated, how about we get together in action circles? And whilst that ostensibly seems to point to being a place we go to be in action, the other thing that happens is we're getting together with other people. We're getting together with other like-minded people. And that's one of the completely key ingredients to keeping us sustainably in action, keeping us awake. You know, awakening, listen, I hope this isn't bad news, but awakening is not a one-shot deal. It's not like it happens and then we got it. It's something we might have to do every day. It's something we might have to do every hour of every day because there's so much invested in luring us back to sleep. So let's stay awake, let's get educated, let's be in action, let's get connected with other people. And when we do all of those things, what we're building is, I believe, my words for it would be a mobilizable critical mass of citizens. Okay? A mobilizable critical mass of citizens informed and ready for action. And then there's another step to all of this, and that's the mobilizing of the mobilizable critical mass. Where are the places we want to point them at? And in the analysis of the Pachamama Alliance, we think there are 2 places that the citizens' energy can go most rapidly to change the game. Okay? First and foremost is representative democracy. In the USA, in 2014, if we don't fix representative democracy so it reflects the will of the people, we'll have no action on anything else. So what a joy it is to be here in partnership with the Move to Amend folks that are here. Thank you. So we've got Caitlin and Jessica. Would you just... If you were here this morning, you had the treat of listening to Caitlin talk about what Move to Amend's about. If you missed that, come back tomorrow morning because there's a workshop that'll take us through exactly what Move to Amend are up to and how our partnership is working together. So that we know is one of the key movements, and the partners we have as the Pachamama Alliance in that area are Move to Amend. The second key area that we need to take action on, and this is probably worldwide, but here we are in the USA, we're going to focus on climate change. And we have a partner in that area as well, which is a partner chosen because they have a methodology that turns citizen voice into effective action in Washington that will see change. That's the Citizens Climate Lobby. And we have some people here. Annette, isn't it? Would you stand up? And David. And David. So if anybody wants to talk about CCL, you've got some information outside. Okay, great. Good for you. Okay, so these are the partnerships that we've taken on as the Pachamama Alliance, and we're urging people to explore inside of the 2 game-changing movements. So here we've got the Up to Us pathway, awakening, educated, linking people up, getting them into action, and action that leads to those 2 doors. Okay, and blesses every other action that we're taking to change the world. Every other action that we take that disrupts the old dream or that begins the fruition of a new dream. That's what we're up to in the Up to Us pathway. So we encourage you to get involved in that. I'm going to mention 2 more things. One's pass it on. Pass it on is okay? This is pass it on. This is people who are inspired to take on as volunteers the work of taking this message out into the world, okay? I mean, that's how this is spreading around the world, I got to tell you. And so when I see Angela and Paul here, plus the other volunteers that are in the room that are making this happen, then something inside me is just fulfilled in my belief about the nature of of us as human beings. So here's a message. And as an organization, what we've been able to do is package all of this and give it to you. So if you want to join into passing this message on, we'll give you all the materials. We'll invite you to a training. We'll put the training on at cost. And we've got donors stood behind us giving us the money to make this material available to you free of charge. So if you want to play that game, would you come and tell me? And on Sunday, after the Peace Symposium is finished on Saturday, we're actually having a day for the local volunteers in Oregon. We've got a bunch of them here. Would you, if you're one of the local volunteers, would you put your hand up? Yay. So Sunday, we'll be getting together to talk about how we take this strategy forward in Oregon. Who here would like to join us? Anybody else like to join us? So please, the next thing for you to do would be to come and see us and pick up the piece of paper that looks like that out on the table out here. And that'll give you the details. We're back here on the campus on Sunday.
And we're relatively fun to be with, too.
Cool.
I said relatively.
No, that's good. And he is. Honestly, most of the time he's relatively fun. So you'll find more about all of this on the I meant to say website.
What she said.
Yeah, one of those. Okay. And I want to just to cap this, I want to showcase a couple of the folks locally. David and Winston and Caitlin, would you just come and... So these, you've heard enough from me. I've been talking about this, but I want you to know the passion that exists in the volunteer community. And Caitlin and Winston are this amazing couple from Ashland who've just arrived. Welcome. Good to see you. And you're up to stuff in Ashland. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to in Ashland, would you?
This is a weird microphone. Is this working?
You've got a microphone, yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Really great to be here. I just got off the road with my wife, Caitlin. Been working and just happy to be here. So I look out at all of you and I see like all this potential. And really, what we're doing in Ashland, it started about 2 years ago when things really started rolling. I took the symposium about 8 years ago, actually, or 7 years ago. And it lit me up and it lit Caitlin up and we just got so excited. And so we learned how to be facilitators. We've been doing that for a while. And we go here, we go there, moving around. And then, so we're putting roots down in Ashland. We put on a symposium. And then we got a friend who joined us, and Lorraine. Is Lorraine here? And our friend Lorraine. And we started the Southern Oregon Pachamama community. And that was just basically us three. And we started giving symposiums quarterly. And all of a sudden, it just started snowballing. And more people are getting involved. And we're doing equinox ceremonies and solstice ceremonies. And I can feel this momentum coming. And it's really fun because I love giving symposiums. It's like my passion. I love sharing this information with people. And some of the details like, oh, we got to get a flyer out. I'm not so good at remembering to do that necessarily. I love strategizing and I get really excited. But working with Caitlin and Lorraine, we're able to fill those gaps together and it makes it fun for us. And so yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
So when we say it's up to us, it's up to these guys. These guys are taken on being up to us. That's wonderful. Do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, do you want just Pachamama community stuff?
No, I just mostly wanted everybody to be able to see you amazing people and kind of like get that you're up to something.
I can say one thing. The symposium that Winston and I actually went to was in 2006, and we actually hosted it, and we'd never seen it. And it was the first symposium to ever take place at on a college campus, and it was actually at the University of Oregon in 2006. And it was 8 hours long then. And we had a really good turnout, but it was a great experience, and we've been hooked ever since. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin. And David is here in Eugene. So what would you say about the vision you have for having vibrant activity here in Eugene?
I would love to see it. What's happening is I'm actually being called to go back down to California. So that means that there is an opening here for someone to take on the role that these people are doing in Ashland and other people are doing in Portland and all around the world, of organizing, bringing community together, offering opportunities for people to step into all these things up here, what's up to us, what's possible. And Eugene is, I mean, let's face it, this is paradise, people. So we only have to walk out our doors to see why doing this work is important. We only have to connect with one another, with one another's hearts, to know why we want to do this work. So tomorrow, or Sunday rather, we will be having an opportunity to get together, and I can talk to you about what we have done in Eugene so far and offer a lot of opportunities to step forward into doing more. And I would be happy to continue to support someone in transitioning into that. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go on.
So I just got to say that the way the Pachamama Alliance has put together all the material, it's really easy. Like, it's so slick. You don't need to be smart to figure it out. It's, you know,
Word for word manual.
yeah, it's like really simple. It's all online. And another cool thing is you can change it to be whatever way you want. It's a PowerPoint, so you can add stuff, take stuff out. You know, make it your own, make it fun. And the other piece that I always like to tell people is maybe, again, maybe you're not good at certain parts of this, but if you feel passionate about it, the one thing that everybody has that they can bring to anything is that they can show up and put their energy into it. And your skills and your gifts will come out into it. So if you're worried, oh, I'm not good at this, I don't know how to do this, just show up. And that's the best way that you can make a difference.
And you might be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, folks. And
what time are we having this on?
10 o'clock on, and it's all on this flyer, so come and grab one of these if you want the details. I thank you so much. Thanks, each of you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you. And then I want to say something in acknowledgement of this audience, because, you know, it might sound like that was a sort of a recruiting pitch. Okay? It was. Somebody said it was. But you know, all we're trying to do is what you've created here in this room already. You know, let's face it, what you've got here, Stan, is a group of people who are like-minded, woken up, pretty educated, and ready to be in action. I think that goes for everybody in the room, doesn't it? Yeah? So what we're talking about is simply a set of tools that have now been replaced by a sunset, but a set of tools to create this kind of large group of awake, active citizens. That's what we're up to. So if you want to, it's rather than sort of recruiting, it's more like if you want to have that set of tools so that you can go back to where you came from and do this and build a group like this on your doorstep, or keep expanding this group, that's available to you. That's kind of the energy I want it to land with. Okay, does that make sense? Good, thank you. And if you've got any questions about that, we'd love to talk more about it at the end of the session. I'll be here, and all the volunteers that are here will be happy to share with you as well.
And John, can I mention one thing about the Portland? Well, first of all, somebody came up and asked me on the break, you know, if I was available to do symposiums, and I just want to say with a resounding yes for both Paul and I that that we love doing like Winston. There practically isn't anything I love to do more. So we are available. We also have a nonprofit organization based in Portland, but we hope will become a statewide nonprofit called the Earth Wisdom Alliance that is the Pachamama. Well, the Pachamama Alliance is actually one entity under that. It is expanding to truly become an alliance of alliances.
Thank you.
Sure.
So here's a little tease for us all. Something that happens inside the symposium is that we get to see and glimpse and awaken to a different worldview. Okay? Does that sound, we've kind of got a different worldview as we're sitting here. I invite each of you, just take a moment, you might want to close your eyes just to have a moment to yourself. I invite you to think of an action you can take on in your life that is consistent with this worldview. Something you do not do at the moment, but the doing of which would remind you of this. That this is where I want to be. This is the way of looking at the world, the way of standing in the world that serves me. I'll give you a crazy example. For me, it's hanging washing on the line. My wife knows not to get between me and the washing line when the sun's out, because for me that's an act of remembrance, it's an act of rebellion almost, because I get to use the natural resources around us to do the work that otherwise would go. So think of something, it's a crazy little, crazy big kind of idea, whatever it is, that the doing of which will keep you awakened to this is what we're up to in the world. Okay. Got it? Need another minute? Need another minute? Or maybe those people that have got one, they'll just shout it out for us and that might help other people in the room. So what can we do leaving here? Plant your own garden, thank you. Not use more paper. So what paper are we specifically going to stop using? Hang on a sec. What paper are we going to stop using? So let's, instead of just, sorry, I don't mean to direct this straight at you, but right, stop using paper, but which paper where? And let's get specific. Well, that was a different comment, yeah. Thank you. So just home in on something specific, like I won't take napkins when I go to the restaurant. It might be that. I'll take my own cloth napkin when I go. That might be what we decide. Fantastic, thank you. Other ideas? Yeah. Take a green container with you when you go out. Thank you. Yeah.
I want to research and post it via Facebook, registered offsets for people flying.
So offset each time you fly. Fantastic. That would keep us in this state of awakened awareness. There was another one at the back somewhere? Yep. Make your own chili. Bottle it and send me some, please. Printing a picture. Who's the photographer that did all those pictures? Chris Gordon? Chris Jordan. Yeah. Somebody over there?
Here's one I started doing as a result of going through my first symposium. And I hug anybody. It's a social justice thing.
Very cool. So please, oh, we got more? Yeah.
I started with the hugs.
Okay.
Driving, a lot of bicycle racing. Just may seem very radical, but it isn't really.
Right.
Spend time where you're actually only eating what you plant in the garden. You don't just plant it, you actually eat it, or dry it.
You know, I think you're such an inspiration, and I'm so sorry that you're going to have to find something else to do as well now.
Ramp it up.
Thank you for letting me play with that one. Guys, share your ideas, please, with somebody else. We don't have time to take more into the room. But there is an invitation to think of what can I do in every day that keeps me in this place. Okay. And then what's the next place we're going to?
We're going to just set up our wrap.
Set up our wrap.
It's time.
Okay, it's time.
So I just want to let you know, we're going to try and complete the symposium shortly because there's lots of other stuff to go on and we've held you here a while. But I'd like you, if you would you lead us through some acknowledgments of all the people that we can
Yeah, I would.
Thank for us being here?
So for us, it's just a complete privilege to be able to be here and share this. And so to Stan, we want to say thank you for the invitation. Stan and the... Yeah. Thank you. I hear in that a deep appreciation for who you are, Stan. I really do. Yeah. And for the rest of the committee that helped bring together this 2 days, thank you. Thank you, all of you. I know some of you are here. And I know there are people that are so hard at work making this happen and helping this live stream out to the world that we can't even see them. So thank you to the whole live stream team. Some of them have spent the afternoon in that cupboard at the back. Thanks, Randy. And then I want to thank Jason on the AV over here. Leonora and the whole sort of
our production
crew in the room. Would you just stand up, please?
Thank you. Thank you.
And then Angela and Paul, volunteers. Yeah. Well, I get paid. Thank you. Thank you.
I knew you'd do that well. Thank you. So just a couple things to think about as we go. We are going to offer you a little gift here in just a moment too, so don't sneak out before that. We have a little thing we'd like to share with you. But one of the things to start thinking about is what's happened for you today. Going through this, what's happened for you today? It's not intended, as John talked about earlier, to be a one-shot peak thing, that hopefully will stir up some things in you that will last daily, weekly, monthly, going forward. So what I'd like to do is invite Angela. Will you take us through our gift giving?
Yes, and I also want to mention we do still have a short closing video too. You don't want to miss that. But, but before we do that, we do have a gift for you that's going to be passed out. This is a gift that was made by the indigenous people in Ecuador. It's a bracelet. I forgot to wear mine. I have a whole collection on my wall. But it's a bracelet that we invite you to wear. And also notice that when you receive it, that it's very difficult to put on by yourself. So you need to turn to your neighbor and help each other put on your bracelets. It's something that it's wash and wear. I mean, it dries really quickly if you wear it in the shower. It's sometimes a conversation starter. If people notice it, you can talk about your experience here. It's also just a personal reminder for you about your experience here. So we invite you to wear it and to never take it off.
Is there anybody who's not gotten one yet? We need some over on the back side.
And in the front here.
Oh, you need another one for today?
Yeah. Yeah, I need one. I forgot to
tie it on for you. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, anybody else missing one? We need one up here, he's going to whine.
Me too.
And don't forget the, how about that one? It goes with your shirt.
Thank you. I don't have a green one yet.
Thank you. But please, please wear these with joy. And also as a remembrance that everything you do and everything you say can be in bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling presence on this planet. I wear mine as a reminder every day because I see it all the time, and just like the visual reminder, the declaration cards continues to remind me about who I want to be. So I wish you good health in wearing this one. All right. I neglected a person to acknowledge. I want to make sure we acknowledge James for our bringing us present in the beginning of this session and also helping to take care of this wonderful space that we get to be in. So, thank you very much. Thank you, James. I have a hug with your name on it, waiting, man. All right, I'd like to bring it home with this last video. Yes, sir? You have a book in your hand. It's a world. It's called Better World Sustainable Source Book. And one of the things that's cool about that particular book, we have those. It not only talks about what some of the issues are and gives you some more information about those, but in each section it also then says, what can you do about it?
Are you giving them away, David? They're free.
That's a really good price in keeping with the rest of the symposium, right? So really cool. Take advantage of that. All right, we're going to watch this last video and then we'll close and say goodnight.
The kind of hope that I often think about, I understand above all is the state of mind, not the state of the world. Either we have hope within us, or we don't. It is a dimension of the soul. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out.
As we look to the future, there's a metaphor from nature that can serve us. When a caterpillar reaches a certain point in its evolution, it becomes overconsumptive, a voracious eater that consumes hundreds of times its own weight. At the same time, inside the molecular structure of the caterpillar, something called the imaginal cells become active. They wake up, look for each other, and begin to cluster inside the caterpillar's body. When enough of them connect, even though they are not in the majority, they become the genetic directors of the future of the caterpillar. At that point, the other cells begin to dissolve and become what's called the nutritive soup, out of which the imaginal cells create the absolutely unpredictable miracle of the butterfly.
What's possible is that we are the imaginal cells on the planet now.
There's an old African proverb that some of you know that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We have to go far quickly. So we have to have a change in consciousness, a change in commitment, a new sense of urgency, a new appreciation for the privilege that we have of undertaking this challenge.
What gives me hope? The answer that came to me was, Julia, if you have hope in your heart, and even if you're the only person left who has hope in their heart, if that hope is committed in action, then there's hope for the world. If you're the only person left, as long as your hope is committed in action, then hope is alive. in the world.
In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now.
What is this thing that unifies all of these different things that we're committed to? Let's call it the more beautiful world our heart knows is possible. Right now, feel that part of you that knows that you are here in service. And ask yourself if you're ready to bow more deeply into that service. If you do it, I predict that you will experience an unexpected opportunity to act on that intention. And it'll be just at the edge of your courage, but not past it.
Every single one of us can do something to make a difference. You can. I can. God bless you.
So don't let this energy die. Thank you very much for coming. Make it a great evening.
Lane Online. Learn, unlearn, relearn.